Hey, what's up guys, Khan here, and today I bring you the Redmi 9 review. Let's start with the unboxing. In the box, you will get the SIM eject tool, warranty card, the user guide manual, TPU case, the phone itself, power adapter, and the USB Type-C cable. When it comes to the size and build quality, the Redmi 9 is a fairly tall and wide phone. Although it has a plastic body, but the plastic is fantastic, especially on affordable phones, and the Redmi 9 once again proves that. The textured back of the Redmi 9 feels great in the hand and provides excellent grip when used naked, though I'd still recommend putting case on. I actually quite like the textured back of the device, which not only helps with the grip but also adds a certain cool factor to the device, and now I have zero issues with the fact that I'm touching a plastic. What's more, plastic keeps the weight below 200 grams, which is admirable for such a large device with a humongous 5020 mAh battery. Don't get me wrong, it's still a big and heavy phone, but it doesn't strike as such. Overall, the Redmi 9 has a joy to handle despite its large dimensions. On the right side, it has the volume rockers and the power button. The buttons are plastic and they're pretty clicky. On top, it has an IR blaster and a noise cancellation. At the bottom, it has USB Type-C port, the speaker and the headphone jack, which is really important at this price point. And a triple slot SIM tray on the left, which supports dual SIM and a micro SD card. There is a traditional fingerprint scanner on the back of the Redmi 9 and it is fast and reliable. Only downside, it's positioned right beneath the camera module and might even be easily confused for a camera lens at first glance. So whenever you reach for the sensor, you are almost guaranteed to smudge the camera above. That's an oversight in my opinion, and I'm not a big fan of the sensor's placement. The display of the Redmi 9 is pretty average. Sure, it's a large and spacious with its 6.53 diagonal and the resolution is much more than sufficient. But it's an LCD Full HD display with bleak color, low brightness and disappointing contrast. The display has Corning Gorilla Glass 3. The screen is massive, almost 90% screen to body ratio, but let's accept it, its display is one of the best display you will get for this price point. It has a water drop notch and the bezels are not that bad. The viewing angles are also good. The Redmi 9 uses Xiaomi's custom version of Android called MIUI. The device came with the MIUI Global 11, which is based on Android 10. It includes the Google Play Store, Gmail, YouTube, Google Maps, Google Photos and Google Assistant. There are also some MIUI specific apps like the Mi Browser, the Theme Manager, the Mi Calculator, the FM Radio app, Mi Mover and the Mi Remote app for the IR Blaster. There are also some pre-installed games which you can uninstall if need be. One way Xiaomi is keeping the price low is by including adverts within the MIUI itself, not just within apps. For example, when you install an app from the Play Store, there is a high chance that you will see an advert on the final post-install screen. At the heart of the Redmi 9 is the MediaTek Helio G80 and either 3 gigs of RAM with 32 gigs of internal or 4 gigs of RAM and 64 gigs of internal storage. The Helio G8 is an octa-core processor with 2x 2.0 GHz Cortex A75 cores and 6x 1.8 GHz Cortex A55 cores and a Mali G52 MC2 GPU. For context, the Cortex A75 was launched in 2017 and is the CPU core design used in processors like the Snapdragon 845, which is found in phones like the OnePlus 6. For those who like benchmark numbers, Redmi 9 scores 359 and 1287 on Geekbench single core and multi-core respectively, and almost 200,000 on Antutu. The Redmi 9 has a quad camera setup which is a big improvement over the Redmi 8. The main sensor is a 13 megapixel f2.2. It's supported by an 8 megapixel ultra wide angle sensor, 5 megapixel macro sensor and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Overall, the camera is above average when you consider this price point. Portrait mode works well enough while the rear facing camera and Pro mode gives you manual control over settings like ISO and white balance. The 8 megapixel ultra wide sensor is a nice added addition and it's great for landscapes. However, the wide angle is fixed focus which limits its use in some situations. The camera app doesn't include any kind of night mode, meaning you will need good lighting for best results. Any attempts to take photos in low light will be noisy and unusable. Things are improved slightly by the built-in AI mode which recognizes scenes like landscapes, food and people. It also recognizes low light situations and does its best to compensate. Overall, the low light performance of the camera is bad. To use the macro lens, you need to enable it in the camera menu. The main problem with the macro camera is that it lacks autofocus or any kind of focus assistant. This means that getting the subject in focus is hard. On the 15 or so images I took, there was only one in focus. The device supports video at 30 frames per second in 1080p or 720p. There are no other modes except for a slow motion mode which is limited to 720p and can be very noisy. The front camera is a reasonable 8 megapixel shooter. Portrait mode is available and works using face detection and computational photography. Since there is no front facing depth sensor, that doesn't mean the results are bad, but don't expect the same quality as portrait shots using the rear camera. The front facing camera also has a palm shutter mode which triggers a timer when a palm is detected in the frame. It worked well the few times I used it. I didn't expect much from the phone's camera and that's why I wasn't that disappointed with the image quality. Photos taken in ideal lighting conditions are okay, but often sportful colors, subpar dynamic range and visible over-sharpening with most photos you take. Selfies are good and portraits are definitely usable. Considering the value for money, the quad camera of the Redmi 9 is an overall plus point for the device. The battery backup fortunately is spectacular on the Redmi 9. Good battery life has been a consistent request from smartphone users. Since the Redmi 9 doesn't have very many fancy features, decent battery life is essential. With the phone's fairly efficient hardware, the large 5020 mAh battery takes a long while to drain. You can rest assured it will last for you a long time. In my experience, 2 days of usage worth the renting. Redmi 9 has a 5020 mAh battery that supports up to 18-watt quick charge 3.0, but in the box you get a 10-watt charger that will take the device from 0 to 25 in 38 minutes, from 0 to 50% in 72 minutes, from 0 to 80% in just under 2 hours, and from 0 to full in 3 hours. That's slow, but then again, what else do you expect in such a price point? During my testing I found that you can play around 8 hours of 3D games or watch 14 hours of YouTube on one charge. That means you will get a full day out of the battery, probably more depending on your usage. In our custom battery test, the phone lasted for a combined time of 10 hours and 14 minutes screen time, which is one of the best results we have seen so far in 2020. The Redmi 9 also supports OTG reverse charging. With the right cable USB Type-C to USB Type-C in my case, I was able to charge another Android phone. Quite handy in an emergency. So can I recommend this phone in such a budget range of 128 USD? Absolutely. This is the first phone that's under 150 US dollars that I could say without a doubt that I could totally use as my daily driver, with a large, gorgeous Full HD display, solid build, a loudspeaker, decent quality photos on camera and a 5020 mAh battery. that could last almost 2 days on a single charge, and all of this under budget. I can say this is the new budget king in the range of under $200 phones. That's all. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Khan for more videos. Until then, bye bye.